What's up, everyone? As you've seen by the beginning of the video there, tonight we're working on the Fossil again. We're going to go through and do a little bit of winter updating tonight. Now, I told you guys that we weren't going to do any major changes to the truck. We're just going to do small stuff to make it a better race truck. And I meant that when I said it, but I got a little bit carried away in the turbo department. Not really. There's a plan behind all this. There was a reason for it. The data showed that it was necessary. But as you've seen there, I got my old turbo off and I sent it off to Precision for some updating. My old turbo was a ProMod 88, so it's 88 millimeter compressor. It had a 103 turbine wheel and a 115 exhaust housing. That setup, I was pushing it pretty much on the edge of what I felt comfortable with. When I had the pump turned up, fuel only, it would make up to 90 pounds of boost in overdrive. With the pump cut all the way back and even just one small nitrous kit, it would make 75, 77, sometimes I've even seen 80 pounds of boost out of it. That's a lot of boost. That's not necessarily where I was wanting to be at, but really the big reason, it was the drive pressure. We had a lot of drive pressure. I don't have a drive pressure sensor. That's not something that I'm yet logging, but I know that drive pressure was high because when RPM would get up around 5,000, you could see it in the G meter. The engine would start to lay over and EGT would go up. That's a perfect indication that your engine is hitting a wall because it has too much drive pressure. When it was fuel only, it would go to 5,300 RPM before it started to hit that wall. But when you introduce nitrous into the equation, even with the fuel cut all the way back, if you're not running a gate or any way to control that drive pressure, it gets out of hand really fast. So I wanted to go with something that would allow me to make a little bit less boost and less drive pressure. So technically this will probably still make the same amount of boost, but it will make less drive pressure because we went with a larger turbine wheel. We still kept the 115 exhaust housing. That's gonna help with keeping spool up similar. According to my sources, this thing should spool pretty much exactly the same as what it did before, maybe just a tad slower. I'm a little skeptical about it, but we'll see. But we went with this direction to try to get the more air into the engine, more air out of the engine. Not necessarily trying to make more horsepower, but trying to run the engine cleaner and trying to make the engine a little bit happier. Once your drive pressure pretty much hits 1-to-1, when you have, say, 80 pounds of drive and 80 pounds of boost, that's a really efficient engine. But when you start getting 100 PSI, 110 PSI of drive and 70, 80 pounds of boost, your engine basically hits a wall and it will not make any more power. It gets hot. It's not going to run clean like that. So we need the engine to be able to breathe more. And with it being able to breathe more, we need to put more air in it because we're trying to run this thing clean. If you guys remember from the last video last year, the last time we took the truck out testing, the best that the AFR gets in this truck during the run is 12.8-to-1. So it is still heavily overfueled with the setup that's in it. The injectors are 5x35s. I wouldn't be surprised if we still need to step down on those. Those are really big and they're old school. A lot of the stuff on my truck is old because it took me so long to build the truck. A lot of the parts are 5-6 years old. I seen a time hop pop up the other day on my Facebook and the valves in this thing are 9 years old. So a lot of things change over that time and you learn a lot of things. But like I always preach in all my other videos, I'm not the kind of guy that's just going to go and change it up to the latest and greatest this or that because I don't really care what's new. I think that you can go really fast with older stuff too, as long as it's proper. But as far as AFR is concerned, we made a big swing on the air here with this, but we might still need to put smaller injectors in it to make it run where it needs to run. The problem that I foresee that we're going to run into is with more air and cleaner, you know, running the AFR better, running it cleaner. We probably aren't going to, this probably isn't going to be a big enough change to get it over into the 20 plus on the AFR. This is probably only going to move it to 15 to 16, maybe 17 to 1 range if we're lucky. And the problem with that range is that's where it's pretty hot. So it's a lot harder to manage the EGTs in that range, and that's why we might ultimately have to cut back to a smaller injector. But without further ado, let's check out this new Precision unit here and see what they sent us. So if you notice, it looks just like my old turbo. And that's because physically on the outside, it is. This is a brand new unit. I really wasn't expecting to do a brand new unit. I was kind of hoping that we could just update what I had. Unfortunately, like I said before, I was pushing mine pretty hard. And I had gotten it out of balance, and because of that, it was consuming oil, and I had to put an oil restrictor in the oil feed line, and that's kind of a no-no on ball bearing stuff, but it was pushing oil out the exhaust, so I kind of had to, and it was starting to eat up the bearing surfaces inside, and they said that, you know, it was kind of looking rough, so we ended up going with a brand new unit. And this is a 98 millimeter compressor wheel with a 108 turbine. So before it was a 103, now we're 108, still the same 115 exhaust housing here. You know, all the Pro Mod turbos are billet aluminum center section, stainless steel housing. These are a really nice piece. The thing that I was really interested in on this was having a shaft speed sensor. Turbo shaft speed is something that when you're running a racing application, you really need to know it and live and die by it. They told me that they don't want to see me push more than about 115 to 120,000 RPM max out of this unit. So we will actually set up some safeties in the smart wire to turn nitrous off as it starts to approach that limit. So that way we take good care of this thing because they're not cheap. But this is their latest and greatest XRP next gen. These aren't even on the website yet, but this is supposed to be really the baddest 98 millimeter turbo on the market. Like I said, I'm not necessarily trying to make, you know, this thing right here will make like 2,300 horsepower. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to get something that makes the engine very happy. And I want a nice, robust turbo, and I really love the Precision stuff. I had great luck out of my Precision stuff in the past, and they're a really great company to work with. And nowadays, I'll choose a good company to work with over, you know, another product just based on customer service. So having the ballistic blanket, just like my old one, is nice, so that way if you ever did experience a failure and you did blow the turbo up, it will help contain all that shrapnel that can very easily cause a very bad day for you. You know, these things on a four-wheel drive are right in front of a tire, and it could end badly if you blow up a turbo and cut down a tire. The really cool thing that they explained to me about this turbo is the way that they designed the map groove area in this. Apparently, it's supposed to be very hard to overspeed this turbo. They didn't necessarily go into great detail, and I don't claim to be a turbo expert, but they said that basically the way it was designed, that it will consume more air than basically what it's capable of. So that's what keeps it from not being able to overspeed. And so allegedly they're very, very hard to overspeed. But since we have this nice speed sensor now, we will know exactly what it is doing. So looking forward to getting this thing on the truck. Another thing that if you've noticed that I run, I'm not the guy that likes the T6 housing stuff. I like this round flange exhaust housing. That's how my header's built for it. I heard all kinds of talk when I originally built that header back in 2016 about how these will not spool in a Cummins application as a single. And if you've seen any of the videos of the truck, you know that I've got it spooling pretty good. the cool thing about these round flange housings is this 115 here will spool like a 115, but it'll flow like a 132. So it's kind of a best of both worlds application, and that's why I really like this stuff. It's also super easy to change. It's just a V-band that holds it on. I mean, I had the turbo off of this thing in 30 minutes. The exhaust housing already comes with the cross bolts made into it, so for class racing, you're legal there. This is the same physical dimensions as my old turbo, so I don't have to change anything with my piping. My hood stack still works, my intercooler piping, which that's a big deal to me because I just built all that stuff last year, and I'm not trying to change it. And if I went to a different manufacturer, I'd have to change that stuff. And that's the nice thing about these housings is you can get a couple different designs, and they're still the same physical dimension, so it's not like you're constantly having to go through and rechange all your piping. That's another thing I like about the Precision stuff. This is an updated oil drain design. It's a -12 O-ring fitting instead of having the 2-bolt like my old style one was. Just one less thing you got to worry about leaking. An O-ring's a lot better in my opinion than one of those paper gasket setups. So really, this should be an all-around great turbo for me. I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't a little nervous about being able to spool this thing. 98's a big boy to me. Now, there's guys running 106 singles nowadays, so this isn't necessarily the biggest thing out there, but to me, this is a big unit. But from what I'm told by people that are a lot smarter than a lot smarter about turbos than I am, is that the 108 exhaust wheel, turbine wheel, will slow the spool up down slightly, but the larger compressor wheel will speed it up because it's moving more air. So if you, at the same given amount of RPM, it's gonna be moving more air. If it's moving more air, it's gonna spool better. So we'll have to see. We'll see how it reacts on the old 12 valve here, but pretty stoked about it. I'm not gonna be doing any spool up testing just yet because it's winter time here. It's 30 degrees to 40 degrees on our best day here. And when I'm racing the truck, those just aren't conditions that I'm racing it in. So for me to go out and do a spool up, I would have to change a lot of stuff that would just get changed back anyways. So we'd be putting wear and tear on stuff for no reason. And I really would like to wait until, we get a little bit closer to actually racing the thing, so I can leave my spool up tune-up exactly how it was at the end of last year and see a direct difference of what it is. Since I haven't changed the converter or I haven't changed anything else, I just want to bolt this on and see the spool up difference. I've always liked doing that kind of stuff, so that way you know what the change you made, how that affected it. But yeah, so here we go. We got a new turbo for the old race truck here. I'm gonna be back to square one. All the testing that we did last year, it's not all out the window. You always learn stuff, always make the chassis better. But as far as, figuring out what boost to leave at on the starting line, it's gonna be different again because this is gonna be more air for the same amount of boost. So if this makes 23 pounds of boost, it might make 300 more horsepower than the 88 did at that kind of boost. So it's gonna be a different animal. We're gonna have to do some more learning and we're gonna have to do some more testing. But it's the necessary evil to continue to push forward and really most importantly to run the truck cleaner and make the engine happier. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. I look forward to the warmer weather where we can really do some spool ups on this thing and see how this baby's gonna rock and roll. So tell me what you think about the new turbo here in the comments. Like and subscribe with all your buddies. Share the channel. I appreciate you guys. And like always, we'll catch you on the next one.